I think that most of us would agree that you want to raise happy, healthy, and confident kids. As parents, we sometimes feel like we walk this tightrope between we want to give them their ability to, have free rein a little bit, but we also know that we need to step in sometimes and do that supervision piece. So how do we establish those healthy lines of communication, and how do we set those reasonable boundaries? Today, we have Debbie who's going to join us, and she's going to share what we're calling 6 pillars. She shares 6 pillars that build this bridge between parents and kids, but also helps to set a foundation for kids that really allows them to thrive. So that is what we're going to dig into today. You do not want to miss this. So get a piece of paper, get a pen, and join us. My name is Cheryl Bassett, and I am founder of Unstoppable Connections, international bestseller, and creator of the Unstoppable Family Meeting Toolkit. I am also the host of this show, Kitchen Table Conversations, as part of the Edge Network. So families do tap into my 4 gifts, and that really is a reflection of what my family went through and how out of that, we created these 4 gifts that create an unshakable, unbreakable foundation for families built on trust. If you want to learn more about the 4 gifts and some of the work I do with families, you can go to unstoppableconnections.com. And if you would like to be on the show or have an idea for the show, you can also reach out to me at kitchentableconversations.com. Now, what I want to do is start out by setting a foundation, and I do this for every show because I think it's so important to set the expectation. What we do on this show is we cover the fun stuff, the tough stuff, and everything in between. It's all designed to ignite a conversation, to strengthen our families, and to create a positive ripple out into the world. So we wrap around the 4th gift, which is the gift of love. And we unwrap that gift by choosing to celebrate ourselves and others. So it's with that intent that we always come with an open heart, an open mind, and a true celebration of the person who came here today to share with us, which is Debbie, to tap into her expertise, to let her share her heart, her passion with us. So with that, let me introduce Debbie just a little bit, and then I'm going to bring her on screen so everybody can see her. She is the nation's leader in motivating students to be peak performers. She is a best-selling author, international speaker, and certified trainer in the Nurtured Heart approach. Her varied background has equipped her to deal with any child under any circumstance. Trust me, you'll love her experience. She's been 31 years working with children's, teens, and young adults in several different countries. Excuse me. For the past 25 years, Debbie has trained teachers across North America in classroom management and how to maximize their connection with students to increase learning. Debbie is the owner of Shady Oak Primary School, and this is an elementary school that offers grades 1 to 5 and is located in Richmond, Texas. So from Ohio to Texas, let's welcome, oh, I did the wrong screen. I'll get you on here. There we go.
Hello.
There we are.
How are you? Nice to see you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you. We were just talking about technology, right? And it's like, technology. Yeah, no, it's great to have you here. And I think, I know we want, these videos will always be evergreen, but I don't think anybody's going to forget what it felt like when we were in March of 2020 with what we're dealing with right now and how it's kind of changed some lives. And I know we were talking a little bit about that. But life for you is kind of still going on in terms of what you do, right?
It is.
That connection.
It is. We finished spring break, and then we did a week we emailed lessons out to our students. And this week we're doing virtual classes over Zoom, and it's been working out very, very well. The kids are allowed to stay connected, see all their friends. Mom and dad can allow us to work and do our magic, and they can do their work. So it's been a great experience for learning lots, and everybody seems to be happy to be back to some normalcy. So it's been very nice.
Good. Yeah. And the connection right now, right? So important.
Oh, very important. Yes.
Yeah. So grateful, right? Because obviously, even though we're sometimes in different places in the world or different parts of the country or whatever, we can actually still connect, and it's amazing. So, and we're going to talk about connection today. So that's like a really going to be part of what we get to talk about. So, but just so you've been doing this for 31 years, I think that's what it said, right? 31 years.
Yes.
Yeah. How did you obviously you're very passionate about it. How did that kind of get started for you, and what?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So we moved here from Canada. I'm Canadian. I grew up in Ottawa, and I lived in Calgary for 10 years. My daughters were born there. I have two girls, and we were transferred to Ireland, and then we moved to Texas. By the time we got to Texas, we determined very quickly that my youngest was hearing impaired, and so being in public school wasn't really working for her. And up until that point, I had done some substitute teaching at the public school and realized that by noon, we were done with curriculum. And what I determined was, I thought maybe it was because it was a substitute teacher coming in, but what I quickly learned, it wasn't that at all. It was my ability to control a classroom allowed me to move through curriculum at a faster pace. And so we made the decision to homeschool our daughters. And one of the guiding posts that allowed me to homeschool and to really keep focused was a question that I asked myself every day. And I'm going to share that with you and our listeners because I think it's a great thing to keep in mind, is what do I want walking out my door at 18? And that allowed me to tailor and structure their school day to include all the soft skills. And what I have learned in my research and in my owning of other schools, I had 12 middle and high schools, is that the sense of connection, the sense of having a clear understanding of what success looks like for you and being able to incorporate those soft skills into your day makes a huge difference and really sets our kids up to be successful in ways that others are not. When my daughters went off to college, it was the first time they had re-entered with other students, and they just couldn't believe how far ahead they were in so many areas. Because they had been homeschooled, not sheltered, they were both involved in a lot of community events, but their learning curve in college was very, very minimal. And I think that whole "what do you want walking out your door at 18" mantra that I use daily really helped.
Yeah, no, I love that. You're right. Like, and I think for parents to sit down and actually say, what does that look like, right?
Yes.
Like, yeah, because I don't think we think about that. We just kind of like life happens. And right now, I think people probably are doing more. There's more opportunity to really connect in and say, what do we want? And I think there'll be a lot of that goes forward as well, even after we get past this crazy time that we're in right now. So, yeah. So I know that part of what you had done too, you had done a TED.
Yes,
TED
I did.
Talk, right?
Yes.
And so part of what you're sharing with us today is some of what you did when you did that talk. Is that correct?
It is. Yeah. One of the things that I've learned in platform speaking and working with teachers and parenting is that we're real clear on what we don't want. We're just not clear on what we do want. And that takes mindfulness. So I know when I work with my teachers, one of the things that I have them do at the beginning of each year is to write themselves a letter that they will open in May that describes in detail the school year that's moving forward. And that is such a powerful way to set intention for the year. Mm-hmm. That and writing a wish list, imagining that Aladdin has shown up and you get to write down 101 things, of which 10 will come true within 2 weeks, as long as you write down your 101, is a real difficult act initially, but really brings clarity to what people want. And then we use that wish list to pull out goals, because you'll see sections will start to develop and there'll be themes. And that allows people to set really meaningful goals. So those exercises really help to allow both our students and the women that I teach to get real clear.
I've never heard that, so I love this. So you do a 101 Aladdin wish list.
Yes.
And the concept is that 10 of those will come true in the next 2 weeks.
It is so powerful. I've been doing it for probably 23 years, and I keep them all in journals. And I'll go back and flip through them and go, oh my gosh, I didn't know that was even going to be true. And there it is in my life. So yeah, setting intention is really important. And so when I established my elementary school, I was very purposeful and very meaningful about what I transferred into that school, because having worked in a preschool and worked with middle and high school students, and I've also done college planning, I knew what was coming. And I knew that if I was able to prepare my elementary school students for the next step, they would just be really set up for success. And that's what we have done. We also look at our 5 years of schooling as a unit, not as a grade. I don't know who decided that you have to finish first grade in May. Says who? What if you finished in February? Do you just have to tread water till May comes? So being able to be a little more fluid with our students allows them to move at their own pace. And sometimes when they're physically growing, they're not learning, gaps will happen. And so we're able to circle back and ensure that that gets filled so that they truly are ready to leave at the end of 5th grade with everything they need to be successful moving forward.
Right. I love it. I mean, honestly, I love everything you're saying. I'm thinking I want to go back to be in elementary school. Can I do it over? Yeah, because I can just hear the difference in terms of what, probably a lot are experiencing. And I certainly know from what I experienced, right, that's dramatically different. And there's some real powerful things that you're doing weaved in to, and it doesn't usually happen. So I know we're going to talk about, and you and I talked a little bit about this before the show, but there's 6 pillars, and we're going to kind of cover through each one of them briefly, but then we're going to go back and hone in, because there, like you said, we could probably do 6 shows, right? Like honing in on just one at a time. And I totally get that. So, but we want to make sure today what we'll do is kind of like give the broad picture, the big picture, and then we'll go back and we'll, connect in on one,
Okay.
You want to kind of dig into. So why don't you go ahead and give them kind of like the overview version of the 6 pillars.
Sure. So the 6 pillars of success that we've designed and sort of used as a basis for our education at Shady Oak starts with connection, followed by collaboration, communication, creativity, critical thinking, and lastly, problem solving. And those are such pillars for us that we, in fact, instruct in them. We have a collaboration room on campus. We teach our students how to collaborate. It's very different than cooperate. We also build strong connections. When a child is connected to their teacher, when they're connected to their community, then they learn. They feel safe. They feel cared for. It's really, when I meet somebody, if you make me feel good about who I am when I'm with you, I really like you. It's a funny thing. And I think it's the same with our students. And so we work diligently to point out their greatness. You mentioned in my introduction, I'm trained and certified in the nurtured heart approach. And that approach specifically looks for the greatness in others and voices it. And I'd like to share a little bit of that if we have time at the end of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say I love what you're saying, because it's true. Like we don't love people because of who they are. We love them because of how they make us feel.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And that brings out our greatness. And when we can stay in that space, we bring out that in others as well. So that's beautiful. Yeah. So again, I just, for anybody, if you are writing down, because again, I said, bring a paper and pencil, right? I said that: connection, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking, communication. And then she has course correction, but that was what she's talking about in the problem solving piece
Right.
of it. And I know you guys do a ton of collaborative stuff, because you and I've talked about some of the things, like they write a book every year. There's a lot of collaboration that you guys do, which is just amazing. So yeah, so we'll dig into one, and then let's definitely talk about your nurture heart as approach as well.
So for us, the basis, the foundation is the connection that we're able to establish with our students. So I'll just tell you a story about a student that I had. When I took over the school, there was 19 children there. We now have over 50. So there was a point where we had to bring in a lot of students, and we took in some students that we might not have taken in under different circumstances in order to build our population up. One of these was a young man in the 4th grade, and on the first day of school, he came to me and said, I'm bad, and I'm stupid, and I like it. And in my head, I went, game on. So what I did with him was build connection. And I had to replace his portfolio of what he thought of himself with real irrefutable evidence. Me telling him that he was great and he was smart and he could learn this and he could do it meant nothing, because we had no connection established yet. And so I did that in very doable ways. So I took pictures with a Kodak camera when I saw him picking up a pencil to think about maybe doing some work. And I just slid it on his desk for him. And again, the key to building the connection was irrefutable evidence. He couldn't argue with me. He was holding his pencil ready to work. That was irrefutable. And over a very short period of time, by February, that young man was a leader on our campus. He had stepped into his greatness, and the connection had been made, and we're still in contact. He is flourishing in middle school right now, and it truly was a huge success story. And I think that we would never have gotten there if I hadn't, myself and my teachers, focused on making the connection first, and then worrying about the learning. And yeah, it was very important. We all like to feel validated. We all like to feel that what we have to say matters. We're big on voice and choice on our campus. Even our first graders get a voice. They get a choice. They get to decide. I learned when I was homeschooling my daughters that, you know, if you learn how to learn, the content isn't that important, especially not now in 2020. So I allow my daughters to choose their social studies projects, what they wanted to learn about. As I mentioned earlier, we're not American, we're Canadian. The next 3 years of their education was going to require them to learn about Texas. And I figured we knew enough about Texas. So we decided to learn what they wanted to learn, which was about the Middle Ages. And we made that a project. Project-based learning is something that is really important to me. And they did hands-on work, and they never forgot it because they were such engaged listeners and learners. When our students have a voice about what they want to study, we go really deep into the subject matter. There's a lot of collaboration, a lot of communication, a lot of connection, and that allows them to engage with the learning, and it's sticky. Even if the subject matter, for example, isn't anything you're that interested in, when you're able to go really deep with the subject, somewhere along the way, you're going to find something that will ring true to you and really you'll want to learn more about. And so, and they also know, because we give them choice and we vote on a lot of things, that if they don't get their choice this time, they will. And it teaches patience, and it teaches, again, that ability to live as a community. We really try to reflect on our campus what our community looks like outside, both racially and religiously and thought processes, and teaching them to listen to another's opinion and to really communicate. I believe in the communication so much that I teach public speaking to my 3rd through 5th graders every Monday. They are amazing orators. They stand up, they give a 4-minute talk. We have a little bell that we ring. They use ums or ahs or likes, and they love that class. That's one of their favorite classes, and they have no fear. So later, when you decide you should be afraid, and what I've explained to them when they tell me, "Oh, Mrs. Elder, I'm a little nervous," and I'm like, "How do you feel?" "Well, I have like butterflies in my stomach, and my palms are kind of sweaty, and I feel kind of jittery." And I'm like, "Huh? How do you feel when you're excited?" They're like, "Well, my hands get kind of sweaty. I get butterflies in my stomach, and I feel giddy." I said, "See, you're not nervous. You're so excited to speak." They're like, "I am." I think you are.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And you know, it's so true what you're saying about, like, I mean, and it's true of all ages, right? We want to feel heard. We want to feel like we have a voice. And I think sometimes we don't let the kids have a voice. And then when we say at 18, like you're saying, when they go out the door, they're out the door. And it's like you've taught them that they can't really have the voice, right? But if you teach them that at a very young age, that their voice matters and that, you know, they get choices, then obviously then they're so much more prepared to walk out that door.
Exactly. Yeah, and I worked, as I said, as a college planner, and I met way too many kids getting ready to go to college with $60,000 of their parents' money who couldn't clearly articulate to me how they studied, where they studied, how they learned best. They had been told where to go, how to go, and been scheduled to different events. There was no reflection time. So we built that into our curriculum. During the day, there's specific times to reflect. In math, if you get the answer wrong, you need to go back and critique it. I need to know that you know what you did wrong so you don't make the same mistake repeatedly. And all of that is, again, very purposeful and very meaningfully done. And my students hate the critiques, which is awesome because they don't have that many to do them, because they really learn to slow down, pay attention, be neat, really check their work. So all of that critical thinking. What we're seeing now in education is a lot of the use of a Scantron, which is the ability to just circle in a multiple choice answer on a test. And I understand why it's being used. It's a lot simpler for teachers. It just goes through a machine, they get the results. Unfortunately, it only touches the lowest level of education. That simple regurgitation. There is no thinking. And the minute they finish that test, and I know because I ran an after school center, they don't even remember what was on the test, never mind the learning. So there's all different ways that we can be assessing our students' ability to learn. And I like to sort of raise the bar a little bit with our students. And critical thinking is desperately needed in this country right now. And we're making sure that it's happening on a regular basis, that they're really thinking about why is something happening. And it requires my teachers to be a guide on the side instead of a sage on the stage, right? They kind of walk in and we all work at it together, as opposed to thinking that the students don't have anything to contribute, because it's just so not true. And allowing them that opportunity and giving them the opportunity in a safe environment to really think things through and to understand it and to articulate back their understanding, not just bubble in. So
Yeah, and I know I shared this with you before too, but like when we first had a family meeting, right? I thought I was going to sit down and impart all my wisdom onto my children, right? And straighten them out. And the truth is that we went on a beautiful journey together, but I probably learned more than they did, because they want to be a part of it. They wanted to
yes.
be part of the solution. They wanted to contribute, and so I gave them that voice and that opportunity to do that, and it's amazing what how their minds work, and in some ways, because they don't have the box, or they don't have the lid on the box, and sometimes they don't even have the box, right?
Right.
Until we decide that they need one, but which we shouldn't. But anyway, yeah. So that's great.
The creativity piece. I know when I was in third grade, I distinctly remember the art teacher holding up a picture of a flower, and we were to draw it. And of course, mine looked nothing like hers, and she let me know that. And I believed at that moment, moving forward for a long time, that I was not creative. Now, I'm still not artistic, but I am very creative in other ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't want that for my students. So we have a TAB art studio, which is teaching for artistic behavior. So the students come in, and every time they walk into the studio, they are treated as an artist, meaning they are going to be taught skills and techniques, but how they express that, whether it's through maybe they're in the Fabric Arts Center, or they're sculpting, or they're drawing, or they're painting, it's unique to them, using the skills that they've been taught in that class, and they get free studio time. So when I walk in there and look at what they've created, nothing looks the same. And they are so proud of their work and so excited to share with me what they've done, what they've created, what they've learned. They also learn things that maybe Elmer's glue wasn't the best. They should have used a different type of glue. And so they're discovering different things, not just art, sometimes science, sometimes how to share resources, how to be a friend and help someone who's struggling or frustrated. So all of that is learning. I think sometimes we get into lanes, and we don't look at learning as open-ended as we should. Mm-hmm. And it's an exciting time right now as schools are shut down and parents are learning about homeschooling and what that requires, and the structure involved, and the scheduling. And then to really, at the end of the day, realize it's all about connection with your child. They're not going to remember maybe what they learned with you, but they're going to remember the time they've spent with you together and how it made them feel to be with you. And I think parenting and letting the child know how loved they are and building that connection is really important. When we talk about how specifically to build the connection, when we end our day with our compliment circle, our students give what we call a recognition. So it's very different than "I love your pink sweater, Cheryl." It would be something along the lines of, "Cheryl, what I noticed is that you're listening so attentively, and you're really nodding your head with me. I feel like you're really connecting with what I'm saying. And what that tells me about you is that you really care about the guests you have on your show, and about putting out good content to your audience." Now, that's a recognition that lands, right? It's very different than, "Hey, it was great to be on your show. You're awesome." Those drive-by praisings are just that. They don't stick. They don't land. And they feel very sincere. And even a baby can tell if you're not being sincere with them. Yeah. And so when you're giving a recognition, you want to hone in on something very specific. So you can acknowledge, right? "I see that you're listening. That feels good. That makes me feel validated." And you recognize that. So imagine in a classroom with 15 kids, and the 3 of them have their hands up. The teacher can acknowledge the 2 that have their hands up and are being quiet and waiting and remembering what they want to say as they listen attentively to the person who's answering the question now. And that really makes a big difference. I had to let a teacher go who refused to use the nurtured heart approach and the growth mindset. And her attitude was that, "Why do I have to state what the standard is? They know to be quiet. They know to raise their hand." And my response to her was, "Well, we're doing it this way because I refuse to allow my teaching classrooms to be hijacked." And I think if you don't meet the needs of others, your family members, you get hijacked. They're going to get your attention. Mom, if you're on your phone all the time, they're going to do something to get your attention, or you can give them your attention and make your phone calls later. So giving a recognition is something that really helps. As I mentioned, there's 4 levels. So there's acknowledgement, I noticed, and then there is what we refer to as a creative recognition. And what I noticed, Cheryl, is you're not picking up your phone. You're not checking your email as I'm speaking. You're attentive. You're with me. And again, that lets me know that you're very interested in the message I'm trying to impart. So thank you for that. Yeah. So you can acknowledge, and sometimes as parents, we're like, "Well, if I say it, it's going to put the idea in their head." Yeah, no. Your kids are really smart. If they wanted to do it, they'd be doing it.
Exactly.
But acknowledging that they're having self-control and practicing self-regulation is very important. And then the last one is a creative solution where not everybody's going to move at the same pace. So that student I mentioned who came to me in 4th grade, he wasn't doing some great things. And if I waited for him to do stuff, they talk about catch him being good. Well, if I waited to catch him being good, yeah, we'd still be waiting because that wasn't going to happen. So I had to get very creative and acknowledging even baby steps, right? Sometimes we turn a mountain into a molehill. Well, what if we turned a molehill into a mountain? So
Right.
exercise, a little bit of homework. I am in education, so I have to bear with me. But after the show is over, when you're done, I want you to write down, parents, what does it take to sharpen a pencil? And what you're going to find is so many places where you can recognize greatness in a child. So, for example, in order to sharpen a pencil, you have to realize you need to sharpen it. You have to find your pencil. You have to know if we're using one of those old crayon pencil sharpeners, you have to know which hole to put it in. You have to know when to stop, otherwise you're going to be down to a nub of a pencil. So many things that we could recognize a child who is maybe struggling or not doing some great stuff. So we break down what they're actually doing. You can recognize all day long. And I've had parents of teenagers be concerned that they're going to, roll their eyes. I'm like, yeah, they might. And they might ask you what class you expect you to learn this, Mom. But I will tell you, as they're rolling their eyes, they're going, bring it on, keep talking. Imagine you had somebody on your shoulder telling you how great you were all day. Man, you could do anything. You're unstoppable, right? And giving our children that sense of worth and self-confidence allows them to do anything. And it's powerful. We've watched it. We've watched these children come out and have so much confidence in the ability to really shine their light, to help others shine their light. And I think that's a big part of our purpose, and helping them to identify that and to give them permission is huge. And I think, I'm very proud of what we do on our campus. And I think that taking time to really address these soft skills, these 6 pillars of success, really makes a difference in your home, in your educational classroom, in your office, even when you're off at work, when we get to go back. Yes.
Yeah, when we get to go back, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think all of that's like you're exactly right. And thank you for the compliments. I'm going to so have you on the show again. But no, you're right. And I think that acknowledgement, right, at a deeper level is just so important for kids, right? And it does build that self-esteem. So I love all of that you're saying. And you're right. Like, you don't think about the little steps, the little things that you could compliment them for, right?
Right.
Yeah. And give them. I know we talked about a little bit about connection and collaboration and creativity, actually. So we kind of hit into the surface of a little bit of them. The critical thinking piece, have we?
Mm-hmm. So being able to not just accept what is said, but learning to question in a way that doesn't question authority is something that we specifically teach our children. So one of the things that we do that's unique is the first 2 weeks of school, I don't allow for any academic instruction. That time is spent setting out clarity with the rules, getting to know our students really well, building teams. And at the end of those 2 weeks, the understanding is that I know that you know, that you know that I know, that you know the rules. So now we can teach. And that ability then opens it up to think critically about, and the students will say, well, why are we doing this? Why aren't we doing this? Could we consider doing this? What if I showed you I understand the material instead of writing it down because that's hard for me in a play, or what if I did a PowerPoint? And so I really am encouraging that with my staff to allow the students to take some ownership of how they present back to us their understanding. And it's fascinating to see how much more depth we get than handing them a test that they have to write. And we do, as I mentioned, a lot of project-based learning. And in that, they work in small groups sometimes, they work individually depending on the project, but they have to think outside the box, like you were saying earlier, and really look at these things from a different perspective. Right now, they're learning about ancient Egypt, and they are building through various steps a museum of ancient Egypt. So they had to figure out where to put their museum. That was their first task. And this is funny. One of my 3rd graders shows me the map, and there's the Nile River, and he tells me he's going to put it over here. And I went, Parks, that's going to be in the middle of the desert. He goes like, yeah. I said, they don't have cars back in ancient Egypt. He's like, oh, I was just trying to stand out. My museum's going to be so awesome. I said, you'll be standing there by yourself. So I said, where do you think you should move it? He goes, well, I guess I should be on the Nile. I said, why? Well, they have transportation, they have food. So, but I could have told him the answer, but instead we work through it together. You'll never forget that. They'll never forget. So taking time to do that and teaching them the steps of critical thinking is really, really important. I'm not seeing a lot of critical thinking, even in the workplace right now. I'm seeing a lot of regurgitation. I'm seeing a lot of people taking other people's ideas and thoughts and making them their own, but not really questioning why. And so I want my students to ask why. Why does this work? Why is this important? Why is this more important than this right now? How do I manage my time? We also offer our students, speaking of creativity, on Friday afternoons, they have Free Choice Friday with the little ones that they can choose a center to go to if their work is completed. The older ones do, well, we stole it directly from Google. So they have 20% of their work week at Google to be creative and come up with new things. So do my students. And we call it Genius Afternoon. And they produce things. But first they have
Genius
Afternoon. Yes. Genius. So they come up with an idea. Then we Shark Tank it. They present their idea to the other students who critique it and offer them suggestions. We've been fortunate enough over the last couple of years to be invited to sell our wares at a bazaar in our community. And so the students work diligently to come up with different items that they would like to produce and then sell. And part of that process is understanding profit and loss. They have to present me with a balance sheet. They have to present me with what it costs to produce one widget. How therefore do you set your pricing? They write angel investment letters to get money to buy the resources they need to then produce. It's a fabulous program that kind of fell into our laps, and we sort of were able to get it going as we went. There was no book on it, but we figured it out, and now it's very common in a lot of schools to have a Genius Hour or a Genius Afternoon, but that requires a lot of critical thinking, in most cases some collaboration, communication, all of these things that we're talking about, and especially problem solving, because what they think will work or what they present when they do their Shark Tank to their other students that they think is a great idea, the other students like, yeah, not so much. And then we had a situation where a couple of boys were going to start doing shows on campus, and they were going to do a magic show. And one of the girls in the room said, you know, I have a book that I got, 127 magic tricks. Would you like to use my resources, my book? And I stopped her there and I said, you know, in business, you would then ask for a percentage of the profit. So I'm going to ask you to do that with the boys. So when they do a show, you get whatever the three of you decide is your percentage of the profit for the entire school year. Even if they return the book to you at Christmas, you get it because they can't give you back that intellectual property that they've learned from your book. I said, so you now have turned into an investor in their business. She was like, well, yeah, I have. All of a sudden, all these other kids had all these resources to help these two with their magic tricks. It was great.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. So it's critical thinking and it's life skills is really what it is, because again, it's eventually they're going to have to go out into the real world and make this happen. So you're teaching so many valuable things. So it's amazing how fast time flies when we're on the show. I would love to have you come back on again, because I know we could dig into some of these, we got through some things, but I know there's even more depth to all of them, and then we can tag into a couple others as well. So we'll just set another time and have you come back on.
I love that.
There's so much here. So what we do when we wrap up a show, for those of you who've watched before, first of all, though, I do want to do this, because if you want to reach out, because I know there's going to be some people who actually would love to learn more from you. And so their website is shadyoakprimary.com. If you have any questions, you can reach out there and connect with and see what they're doing, because you're doing so many things, right? That they can learn more by going to your website. But if they want to, there's a way, I assume, there for them to contact you through the website as well. Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to leave that up. It's shadyoakprimary.com for those of you who might be listening and not watching. And that's how you can reach out and connect with Debbie. So we close the show, every show, with a drop of thought, which is really like a pearl of wisdom, but we call it a dot, which a dot you want to leave on the world, or a drop of thought. So what I think you had one in mind, I think, when we were talking earlier. So
just want to remind people to recognize the greatness in their loved ones, in their employees, in their friends. It really goes a long way, and it just isn't happening the way we need it to happen in this world. So, and it feels so good when you are tasked with finding greatness in others. It was so uplifting when we started doing it at our school. So recognize, using those 4 techniques that I taught, the greatness in others, and it'll bring out the greatness in you.
Great. And do you have a book as well?
I have a couple of books. So I have 2 adult books and I have 4 children's books. The children's books are called What Every Cool Kid Deserves to Know. And the 4 topics that the children have addressed to date are happiness, success, inner coach, and mindfulness. So we do a lot of work at the school on setting a positive mindset versus a fixed mindset. So growth versus fixed. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So that's another thing they could find out by going to your website as well.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. So thank you so much for coming on. The dot that I always leave, well, actually I have 2 that I love, but I'll use this one today just because of the times we're in, but that, you know, if we really want to see change in the world, it starts with us. Ripples don't flow in, they flow out. Nature demands it. So we get to be that change by starting in our own homes with our own families first. I want to thank everyone who's watching the show, everyone who's going to get to listen to the show afterwards. We appreciate you being here. And till next time. And Debbie, thank you so much again.
Thank you. This has been awesome. Thank you.
Great.